Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to our nerdiest thing. Today, we are live with a very special guest, voice actor Scott McCormick. Scott is a professional actor and voice artist for over 20 years. Scott has directed and adapted nearly 60 audiobook titles for the Rockville based Graphic Audio, where he continues to work as a voice actor and narrator across multiple genres such as comic book adaptations and romantasy. His adaptation of Marvel's Superheroes Secret Wars and Thanos Death Sentence were both named one of Audiophile magazine's audiobooks of the year. He also directed the Audie award winning book Hellboy, Goddess of Manhattan, where he also voiced Hellboy. Scott is the adapter, director, and voice actor of the Fourth Wing graphic audio books. He has appeared on stages large and small around the DC region, including Shakespeare Theatre, Studio Theatre, Woolly Mammoth and Rorschach Theatre, where he has been a company member for over 15 years and lives in Kensington, Maryland with his wife and too many action figures. Welcome to the podcast, Scott. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I heard you say all that, and then I suddenly realized all of those are about 5 to 10 years off where it is. I've been acting for like 30 years at this point, but one doesn't like to think of oneself creeping into that sort of territory. But
Yes.
yeah, 30 years. Let's say 30 years.
Well, it's already an impressive resume, even without it being 30 years, right?
I feel like when I hear it all out there, I realize how much I've done, and it's been great. And I'd say now we're up to about going on year 13 with graphic audio. So a
That's
good
awesome.
amount of that time. And that's just as a adapter director. I did voice work for them going back, I would say almost 16 years. So back to the days we had contracts with Marvel and DC back in the day. And
Hmm.
I was lucky enough to do some work with DC where I got to play Ares, God of War, and Etrigan the demon. And then when I started working at Graphic Audio, that's when they said, "You're the nerd. You do the comic books." So me and Richard Rowan, who was the main narrator of those books, we directed about between us about 20 novelizations of Marvel books and a couple of direct to audiobook adaptations of some of the graphic novels as well.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, no, it's been as I always tell people, if I'd known this was a job when I was a kid, this is what I would have been training for my whole life. And it turns
Yeah.
out I was training for this my whole life. So,
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you kind of transitioned into voice acting, because I'm assuming that you started as a stage actor first and then voice acting second. So
yes.
how did that transition happen for you?
So I graduated from college and I had a political science degree. And I went on a whole bunch of interviews and none of them clicked for them or for me. And I
Mm,
went and I talked to someone who I'd known as a sort of a mentor. And he said, the only time you ever brighten up is when you talk about theater. You should go do theater for a couple years, and while you're still young and nobody is relying on you but you.
mm.
And he said, spend a couple years doing that, and then come back to me. And I'll see about getting you a day job. So I did a 2 year tour with a traveling Shakespeare company out of Olney, Maryland, which is actually about 15 minutes from where I live now, called National Players, and we traveled everywhere from the Southwest, not Southwest, uh, South Dakota down to Georgia, and everywhere on the Eastern Seaboard. And we did that, did Twelfth Night and Cyrano de Bergerac and Of Mice and Men and The Taming of the Shrew. And when I got done doing that, I moved to DC and started working on stage around here. Um, DC, I don't know if how many people know this, is like depending on who you talk to, either the third or the fourth largest theater market in the country.
Oh,
After
wow.
obviously, well, theater slash acting, because of course LA gets all the film work, and New York people think stage work, and then Chicago is a big mishmash of improv and stage and film work,
Yeah.
and then DC is and has always been sort of a go-to theater town. So I started being able to piece together some work here. And then I heard some friends of mine talking about this company that was doing comic book adaptations, and they were
Mm.
getting to play all the superheroes. My friend Eric Messner, who works at Graphic Audio now, his big break was he got to play Green Lantern, and I was a big Green Lantern fan. So I said, "How do I get into that?"
Yeah.
And so I went to this sort of rundown office space in downtown Bethesda, which is north of DC. And I went into the studio, did some voices, did some funny accents and voices for them. And the next thing I know, I got cast in a Flash comic book as a grizzled Midwest police detective, and that was my first role in graphic audio. And then after that, started getting cast in Brandon Sanderson books and Simon R. Green and all of these really big name science fiction series. They also did a lot of westerns back then and a lot of post-apocalyptic books,
Mm,
which we
yeah.
still do some of. But at this point, um, I flash forward. I needed a job about 2 or 3 years later, and I said to them, "I'll do anything." And they said, "Why don't you try and be an adapter?" I said, "Okay." I started adapting the scripts, and then they said, "Why don't you come be a director for us?" And so after that, I started narrating the books on top of that, and 13 years later, I got dumped into the deep end of the pool with my first romantasy, which was a series called Frost and Nectar by K.F. Breen.
Yeah.
Before I got given the gift that is Fourth Wing, which is the gift that keeps on giving. So
Yeah, I love the Fourth Wing series for sure. Well, you've mentioned several different genres, both as a stage actor and also as a voice actor. Do you have a favorite genre that you find the most fun for you personally, or is it all fun in its own different, unique ways?
I used to love being on stage because it was instant gratification of hearing people laugh when you made a
Yeah.
joke. Or so comedy's always been my friend. I always say that if God gave me two gifts, one was my voice, the other was timing. And
Mm.
so that's always been my happy spot. But as far as audiobooks go, I'm a big fantasy fan. I especially like the works of an author named Simon R. Green and another author named Peter David, who passed away
Mm.
unfortunately just this last weekend. And what I like to think of them as is like um, comic fantasy. So Simon's wrote a series called The Forest Kingdom Saga, which was one of my first big debut roles, and so it's always just uh, you know just enough fantasy and pathos to make you fall in love with it. And he has I've been blessed to do three of his series, one of it which was called the Ghost Finder series, which was a supernatural British ghost hunting team where I played Happy Jack, who was a drug-addled paranormal investigator.
Mm.
And then Ishmael Jones, which is a series about a extraterrestrial investigator who goes into supernatural situations and tries to figure out whether or not there's a supernatural or sci-fi element to it. And so I got to do 12 of those. The big series at this point, strangely enough, my biggest series is Vampire Hunter D, which is a continuing anime series from Hideyuki Kikuchi and Yashitaka Amano about D, who is a Dhampir, which is a half vampire, half human
Mm.
hybrid who hunts down the nobility, which is their term for vampires, about 12,000 years in the future.
Oh, wow.
So it's what I call the supernatural uh, post-apocalyptic vampire fantasy series with a little bit of Western twang to it. So those are some of my favorite series to do. Is anything where I don't think I think the best stories, and I think it was Alan Moore who said this is no story is one genre. All the
Mm.
interesting stories are, you know, a romantasy as we come back to it. Romance fantasy is a great example of those mashups. But everything that's interesting, worth reading, is a mashup of one or two different genres.
Yeah, the layered stories, the complex characters. Yes. We talk about that a lot on the podcast of especially characters. The best characters are the ones that are nuanced and not fully good, not fully bad, the morally gray. Those are the best kind of characters to read in my opinion.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, I know you can't talk about many specific things with graphic audio, but tell us what you can about adapting Fourth Wing for graphic audio and working
So,
with the other voice actors as well.
so the best thing about this book is it's a very intense experience as far as dialogue and sound escapes, which is what we look for in a book. I don't know how many people are aware of what we do, but what we do is we take out all the he says and the she says, and then we assign lines to different actors, and then the different actors speak the lines of dialogue. We'll have a narrator to sort of do the info dumps, which in this case is the very talented Miss Kaya Freites. Um, and she has been a dream to work with. Then what I do as a director is I'm the one who determines where the sound effects come in. I give some advice about where music cues might come in, but I also have a sound designer who I work with who kind of interprets my loose notes and sort of makes it into magic. And they do most of the scoring and choosing of which sound effects are used. And then I do my pass and I listen and give feedback to that. Um, so that is the whole start of it. It takes time to take those scripts. We have to. I don't. It's not truly a rewrite because I keep the sentences meaning what the sentences mean, but we might
Sure.
have to cut out some of the material in order to make the scenes flow better. Um, Although recently we've made a commitment to keeping more of the books intact and keep making sure that all the scenes get done so people won't miss their favorite scenes. And hopefully I struggle every day just to make sure every line of dialogue that's in there gets said. So there
Yeah.
are people who love every line of these books. um so then as far as working with the actors, I then cast the books out of a group of voice actors. We have about, at this point, um, we used to be, when we were based out of DC, which we continue to be based out of DC, but we would use mostly local actors. And at that point, we probably had between 75 and 100 actors who were working with us. At this point, we have almost 250 actors.
Oh,
We
wow.
I figured it out the other day. We just got an actor from Australia, so we have actors on 6 of the 7 continents,
I love that. That's
which
awesome.
which means we're working at all hours of the day and night at this point to
Yeah.
accommodate people. We have actors on both coasts of the United States, and we still maintain a lot of our local actors. When COVID hit, that was one of the big determining factors. We used to bring all our actors into the studios, and now we work with them remotely. So that gives us the opportunity to work with some of the best people in the business, both from the voiceover world, cartoons and ADR and all that, and then also just audiobook narrators. We've gotten a lot of very talented people who have done single narrator books who've come over to us, and they get to indulge their theatrical side by playing character roles that they might not get to do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And as I say to people, it doesn't matter what you look like, it's what you sound like, or at least
100%.
what you sound like to me, which is the determining factor a lot of the times. Um, our leads sometimes we'll need to consult with the director, I mean with the author, which is why Kaya and Gabriel Michael, who plays Zayden, were both chosen out of some people that I sent in as samples. So Rebecca chose both of them, and they both worked out wonderfully, and I'm
Yeah.
proud of both of my young beautiful children, I call them.
Yeah.
I have a
I think
man.
that's something that people don't really realize about audiobooks in general, but especially graphic audio, of how much of a performance it is.
Oh
I
yeah.
think people don't realize that it's not just read the lines on the page, that it's a true acting performance to bring this story to life.
And that's my when once I get the script adapted, that's really my biggest job, is to sit there in the studio or in my studio. I'm in my studio right now in my basement of my house in a little closet. Um, and I feed the lines of dialogue to the actors. I give them as much as I can. Like I say, by the time the book's done, I've acted out every line of dialogue to one degree or
Yeah.
another, so that we're able to get the performance out of them. I'll give them suggestions and tweaks. I like to say once I get the right people in place, I have to do very little work.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's the first take, sometimes it's the second or third take with a little adjustment. And it's one of my greatest joys in life is A, to be able to give work to talented people, and B, just the whole idea of being able to help craft a performance and determine where the storytelling takes us, and hearing things that other people don't hear. I kid when I say this, but I go through that script at least 3 times by the time it's done. So,
Yeah.
I always joke that I see these people with these fan theories online, and I'm like, well, do you remember that they said this in this chapter? Did you
I'm
notice
like,
that? Did you notice that the stone was missing from the hilt of the sword, from the blade of Tyrandor, um, uh, halfway through book 3, and that later on, that's the stone that turns up in her wedding ring.
mhm.
Those are the kinds of things that after you've spent a lot of time with the book, you start to pick up on. So,
That's exactly how I am as a reader. I will make notes in my phone as I'm reading some, especially in a fantasy series, because
right.
there's just so much information, right? And I am that person that I'm like, "Oh, here's this little detail. I bet it's important later." And sometimes I'm able to use it to make a connection, and sometimes it was just a detail. Not a big, at least so far in the series.
Rebecca has said that it's all there on the page, and I got to be honest with you. It may be on there on the page, but you will not recognize it until it gets to be there. You
Right.
know, if someone's second signet, I thought it was obvious what the second signet was. Yes, but only after I've gotten it revealed to me is it clear what the second
Right.
signet is.
Then I can go back and say, "Oh, yeah, I see
I knew
that."
that. I knew that I
Yeah,
guessed
that
that.
was
I
very
guessed that.
clear.
Sure.
Well, since you mentioned fan theories, do you have any theories for upcoming Empyrean books?
I mean, as I say to everyone who asks me, I know nothing beyond what I get, and I have, and they ask why are the graphic audiobooks so much after the initial release, and then, well, A, it takes time to do them, and B, we don't get the book until pretty much when the book comes out at this point. So I don't see anything until anybody else does. I don't know anything anybody else doesn't know. However, I think that I'm not the only one who still thinks it's curious that Brennan survived and Nolan didn't.
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
that when he talks about I could no more kill this person than I could kill my own brother or kill Violet, I think it's because of the connection between Nolan and Taryn. I think that he realizes that if he hurts Nolan, he would hurt Taryn, and if he hurts Taryn, then he's going to hurt Violet, and if he hurts Violet, he's going to kill himself, and he's going to kill Sigil. So I mean, I think that that's a fairly obvious one. However, now that they throw curveballs in, like the sage having a son that somehow that he needs access to, who is that? Who are the other? I think that there's got to be at least one other secret person. My heart's going to break if it turns out to be Kaori, because Kaori is who I've been giving voice to since the beginning of the series. But I
Yeah.
also feel like she does a good job of bringing people into the cycle just enough to remind you that they're there in order to then break your heart with them.
Yep.
Um,
I remember this lovable character.
I'm going to tell you, Quinn. I didn't
Yeah.
think I was invested in Quinn. I had to do both sides of the Quinn Imogen scene. I
Mm,
cried both times I did that scene.
yeah.
I I did not realize how effective. I mean, when it was Liam, I knew I was wrecked when it came to Liam. I think everybody and their mother was
Yeah,
wrecked.
everybody. Yeah.
And even Lilith, Lilith. Oh my God, I just think that she does such a good job of just making sure that you realize what the stakes are, and you know it is a rich tapestry. And to be honest with you, this is not the kind of book I read on my own. The kind of books I
Hmm.
read on my own are usually, you know, either straight up urban fantasy or detective novels. But this one, you know, it gets me in the feel places. It
Yeah.
also it also, you know, I love the characters. I mean, I haven't talked enough about, I think, my two favorite, which are Zayden and Violet, and a lot of it has to do with the actors. They're very talented. I think Gabriel Michael and Kaya Freites can do no wrong, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Their their instincts for how to play these characters, you know, we've worked really hard to sort of find their voices, but I think even from the word go, Kaya had a handle on her that was just amazing. And I think that Gabriel Michael, you know, I'm not speaking for a large portion of the listening audience. Gabriel Michael is just dreamy. He's a dreamy boy. As a middle-aged heterosexual man, I'm gonna tell you, his voice, he gets the purr on there, and you just feel like, okay,
Shout out to Gabriel
yeah,
Michael.
yeah. So, and then all of the rest of the, it's so funny. I kid about them being my kids, but you know, you know, there's at least 25 years age difference between me and most of my cast because it had to be a young sounding cast.
Sure.
It's one of
Yeah.
the reasons why the cast is so big, is because I can't hide them behind old people voices because they all have to sound young and they all
Sure.
have to sound different. So Taylor Cohen, who plays Rhiannon, they are incredible at what they do. Um, uh, I tell stories about Henry W. Kramer, who plays Sawyer. I knew Henry when he was 10 years old, and he was bar backing at a woolly mammoth theater Christmas party. I've known him and his parents for
Oh,
years and years
nice.
and years, and he just recently got married, and I was like, how did they grow up so fast? And then Jessica Schley, who's playing Imogen, she turns in a we I know we haven't gotten to the second book release yet, but the Imogen narration portion of that book, people are gonna just feel gutted because she felt gutted, and I heard all of that in her voice, and I think people are going to look forward to hearing that chapter a lot. Um,
Yeah.
and then I could go on and on, but I just want to give a special shout out to Rob Morera, who plays Riddick.
Hmm.
He turned in the best line deliveries this last time. The jokes were so on point. I just am so proud of everything he did. And then when it turned into the serious parts that are coming in the second part with the big reveals and all that, he's just phenomenal. And I'll tell you also, turn it, Laura C. Harris as Mira. Mira is so funny in this first half. The scene where the lady thinks that Zayden is Dane. Hilarious. And Dane Atos, my friend, Mr. Torian Brackett. Torian was almost Zayden, and there was this whole thing at the beginning where people were like, "I don't like the fact that I like the voice actor playing Dane. Dane's disgusting. I don't want to hear it." And I'm like, if Dane sounds reprehensible from the beginning, there are no stakes.
Exactly. Right.
And now that Dane is where Dane is at,
Mm-hmm.
they're glad Dane sounds as kind and gentle and
Exactly.
good as Dane sounds.
Again,
So
that complex character, right? He's layered. It's not fully villain. It's not fully good guy. Yeah, I think the only thing better than reading characters that you love is hearing talented people bring them to life in an audio
absolutely.
format. And I love it so much. Do you have any works in progress that you can tell us about, or is everything just very like Fourth Wing hush hush right now?
Fourth Wing is obviously we're wrapping it up. I just listened to side 5. It's going to be 10 sides, so just around 11 hours. It's our sides usually work out to be about an hour a side because we have to. There's still people who use CDs, believe it or not, so we need to make sure our things can fit on CDs.
Sure.
So we're about halfway through right now. So I just got to a very, very tense showdown that was building. So that was a lot of fun. Then I'm got Vampire Hunter D number 23, which is called Iria the Berserker, which is about a young woman whose entire family was murdered by vampires, and she becomes a vampire hunter herself, and no one can figure out how she survived. And so
Mm.
Dee takes an interest in her, and the two of them sort of go on this wander to try and find the other vampires who killed her family and take them out. But she also has to
Nice.
kill her brothers and sisters who were
Mm.
also converted into vampires. So it's got a lot of revenge elements and also a lot of just mystery to why she is who she is. Then I am also, and this is the new news. Do you know the film Bubba Hotep?
I don't think I do.
So in the late 1990s or maybe early 2000s, it was probably early 2000s. There was an adaptation of a short story called Bubba Hotep, which was about Elvis Presley. Um, did not die. He swapped lives with an Elvis impersonator, and eventually broke his hip and got put into a nursing home in Texas.
Hmm.
And he basically is on his last legs, and people start mysteriously dying in the nursing home. And he
Hmm.
hears something moving in the hallways, and he befriends a black gentleman named Jack, and Jack believes himself to be um, um, John F. Kennedy, who they've also put into this nursing home. And the two of them have to battle a mysterious force that turns out to be an Egyptian mummy.
Oh.
So it's basically, so this was a movie back on the day that starred Bruce Campbell as Elvis, and Ozzie Davis played JFK. And
Hmm.
so we got the rights to that. And then there was at the end, they teased out another movie that we were going to make, was going to be Bubba Nosferatu. And that never got made. But the author who wrote the short story did write a story called Bubba versus the Cosmic Soul Suckers or Bloodsuckers, which is a younger Elvis going against interdimensional vampires. So we're doing a 1-2 punch of Bubba Hotep and Bubba versus the Cosmic Bloodsuckers um,
Nice.
as my next book. So that's where we're at. And then I I tell you I finish one book and then they tell me the next good thing that's coming across my plate. Um, in the last couple of years, I've gotten to do the Hellboy series, which we did 3 original Hellboy stories written by Christopher Golden, who's sort of the Tom Hagen, the consigliere of the Hellboy universe, and he works with Mike Mignola, who created Hellboy, and they came up with these great stories. The first one basically follows up on Hellboy in Love, which was set in the 1980s with Hellboy and his girlfriend. They're in South America. It's Hellboy versus the plague of wasps, and he has to battle an ancient South American goddess who controls wasps, who then infest people and have the wasp burst out of their chests. And then the
Ugh.
next one was the lobster, which not too many people know, but the lobster is the sort of pulp character in that universe, the Batman in that
Mhm.
universe. And that one was a story about a group of Nazis who were trying to create Ubermensch, Supermen, in order to
Mm.
take over New York. And the lobster fights them. And then we flash forward 70 years to the 1990s, and the same woman who was the newspaper reporter who was investigating that in the 1930s, she's now in her 90s, and she teams up with Hellboy and Abe Sapien and Liz Sherman, and they fight the another goddess of Manhattan who is trying to take down people with sort of these living dead creatures who are coming up from the sewers. And
Oh,
that was the one we just won best original audio drama for at the audio awards this year, which was phenomenal.
congratulations.
I will tell you and share a little story about that. So it's a big night for all the audiobook people, and the only people who get to give speeches are, of course, the famous people. So that night we got to meet Kate McKinnon, um, and Jim Dale, the guy who did the narrating for the Harry Potter series in Great Britain
Yeah.
in the United States. All these like big name audiobook narrators. Well, we also got to meet Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, that's exciting.
And so I have a friend, Marnie Penning, who's one of our narrators. She played Lilith Sorringale. She is a force of nature and a very good friend of mine. I've known her for almost 25 years. And we are doing we're doing the photos after we get the awards given to us. And she says, "Come on, let's go talk to Whoopi Goldberg." And I go, "I don't want to talk to Whoopi Goldberg. She doesn't need to talk to me." She said, "Let's go talk to Whoopi Goldberg." So
It's your one chance, right?
right. So she, my wife, Jillian, and by the way, shout out to Jillian. Nothing would be possible without her. Jillian
Shout out to Jillian.
and Marnie, we all got together and we went over and said, "Miss Goldberg, congratulations on your Audie. We won an Audie too. We won for Best Original Drama for Hellboy." And she stops her and she puts a hand on my chest and she says, "You don't have to tell me. I have them all. I've listened to them all.
Oh my gosh.
Your books are amazing." She starts calling out plot points. She says, "Your books are like nothing else with the music and the sound effects." And she just starts gushing about graphic audio.
Oh, I love that. I would
So,
have just burst into tears right
well,
there.
I had already cried once that night for the winning.
Yeah.
We've been nominated at Graphic Audio, I think 5 times, and this was our first win. And so it was a huge deal for the whole company. I mean,
Yeah.
all of my friends and coworkers, they they work and toil in obscurity. I mean, yes, people who know us and they love our voices and they would recognize our voices if they heard them, but in the grand scheme of things, we're never going to become beyond graphic audio famous. And so
Yeah.
for us to get an award like that and then to know someone who, Guinan loves what I do. Guinan said to me, "You're the voice in my head." And that to me was nerdvana.
I love
Yeah.
that. Well, and I love too that all of that happened because you followed your passions however many years ago, right? The interviews didn't work out, the degree that you got, you're not really using it, but who cares because you have found, your place, right? And what works best for you and you bring so much joy to people's lives through this medium and I just think that's great. Thank
Well,
you
thank you.
for sharing that.
Well,
That
thank you
brings
for
us
having me.
yeah, no, that brings us to our speed round. I have just some random questions for you, for our listeners to get to know you a little bit. No wrong answers, just whatever pops into your head.
Okay.
If you could wake up tomorrow in any of your favorite books from your childhood, what book would you choose?
Lord of the Rings.
Excellent. The way that you imagined it as you read it or movie version?
Peter Jackson's world is a heightened version of what I imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, the artwork put it into this realm of sort of like very, very refined, very Arthurian literature. To be
Yeah.
honest, that was never my Lord of the Rings. My Lord of the Rings, I think the first time we listened obviously audiobooks going cross country.
Yeah, road trips.
That was my entryway into so many things in this life, and now I come back to it. But yeah, no, as much grief as people give to Power, the Rings of Power, I would still rather be in the Rings of Power world than in the real world right now.
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah,
If you could wake up tomorrow in one of your graphic audio projects, what
yeah.
would you choose?
Uh, I would think if I had to pick anything, I think I'd be pick. I come back to Simon R. Green all the time because Simon R. Green, not a very well known writer, to be honest with you. I've talked to him a couple times. I've met him in real life. His imagination is boundless. He's so good at writing the horror and the sci-fi and the fantasy elements of it. So I would love to be in a Simon R. Green book, and I would pick. He has a series that like I said, um, Ishmael Jones series, which is basically Ishmael and his partner Penny going around and solving these mysteries. And I'm a big mystery person, and I would love to be a
Yeah.
detective. So that would be
Yeah.
that would be my ideal.
Do you have any characters that you have voiced that you relate to the most, I guess?
um, I'm a very I'm a romantic when it comes down to it. I'm also a big man, a big hearted man, and I've gotten to play these characters that are sort of in that category. Hellboy
Gentle,
being one of
gentle
them.
giants.
Gentle Giants, yes. The Thing from the Fantastic Four. I got to play him for several of the Marvel series, and to be honest
That's
with
awesome.
you, that was one of my other dreams come true. Um, those are the kinds of characters I gravitate towards. Are just misunderstood giants that just sort of are there to take care of the people around them. I
Yeah.
like to think I'm that person. I'm sure if you ask my wife, that's the person I am. If you ask me, I doubt myself on a fairly regular basis. I think so many of us do doubt ourselves, but
We're all our own worst critics. Yeah.
that is the truth.
What was your favorite movie as a child?
Huh. I mean, my favorite movie as a grown up and as a child always comes back to Wrath of Khan. I am a big Trekkie. And
Yeah.
so that is a movie that still punches me in the gut every time. If I was going to choose a traditional children's movie, I would say that I would go to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Nice. Gene
Yeah.
Wilder, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah. The Johnny Depp one was
Johnny Depp
too
was not
weird for
around.
me.
Not around when I was a kid.
Yeah, I'm a Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka as well. What is your favorite thing to do on a day off?
My wife and I love to just go adventuring. We just like to, we call them regional adventures, and they're usually loading ourselves into the car and either going to someplace we've been before or going someplace we've never been before. We, I recently for Christmas I got her um, this thing I saw. I buy so many things advertised on Facebook. This shirt was advertised on Facebook, but this was a set of cards that you scratch off and it gives you a regional adventure to do in Maryland.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
we scratched off this one, and it was the one side said go to the aquarium in Baltimore, which we've been to many times, and then on the other side was to go to the arboretum, or not arboretum. It was a plant house in Druid Hill Park near the zoo in Baltimore. I grew up in Baltimore. I have never been there, or at least I didn't remember ever having gone there. I may have gone there when I was a kid. So we went up there. We had breakfast at a little cafe called the uh, Blue Moon Cafe and or Paper Moon Cafe, and then we went over there, and it was lovely. It's small and it's not that big. You know, we've been to bigger greenhouses before, but
Yeah.
this was just one of those nice little Victorian surprises that hides
Yeah.
out that you just go to on a Sunday morning. So we also are big fans of just loading up, and we're about an hour away from Gettysburg, the battlefield slash town
Yeah.
built around the battle, and we'll just go and we'll wander around the battlefield and that's our way of getting out and seeing some nature and
Yeah, I used to teach eighth grade like 15 years ago, and we took a trip to DC every year with the eighth
yeah,
graders, and we went to Gettysburg. And one year they hired I don't know what their official term is, basically travel guides that know every single detail about the Battle of Gettysburg,
and they
and
got
they
the bus with you.
Yes, got on the bus with us
Yeah.
and told us, I mean, you could ask them any question that you could think of and they would tell you they knew the answer. It was the coolest thing. I'm kind of a history nerd when I'm in a place like that, and I that was one of my favorite things that we ever did. I love it so much.
We used to go up there in our early days of our relationship, and they've improved so many things. The visitor center is just state of the art and just amazing now.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, there used to be this, for some reason they put a observation tower in the middle of the battlefield that they've torn down. But the one of the things I missed that they got rid of was there used to be a wax museum in downtown Gettysburg, and
Oh.
at the end of the tour, there would be an animatronic Lincoln come up out of the floor uh, and deliver
Oh.
the Gettysburg Address. And unfortunately, he broke down. He's no longer with us. So they changed that building. It's a gift shop and museum now. But
Yeah.
there's just so many of those little kitschy things that you can find if you look for 'em. If you go to Harper's Ferry, there's also a wax museum there where you get to watch John Brown step up onto the to the platform as they put a noose around his neck. There's
Oh.
so many crazy historical things in this region, and so yeah, any kind of historical adventure, we love that stuff.
That's awesome. If you could live in the Empyrean world of Fourth Wing, would
Hmm.
you choose to be a writer or would you go in a different direction?
It's been interesting now that the world is sort of opened up in Onyx Storm that there's more options.
Right, there are.
Um,
That's true.
I I mean, not just the elder cultures of Deverelli and Hedion and Zanal and all those places, but also, you can be a duke or a duchess. You could be, so many things. But you gotta say, if you had your own dragon,
That would be cool.
you'd want a dragon. I don't think I personally would have ever been able to sustain
Me
myself
too.
again with the physical part of it.
I would
But
have fallen off the parapet first day.
I picked Professor Kiori for myself because I didn't want to give myself too big a role in the first book because there was so much but Kiori's grown on me so much as far as just his love of dragons and seeing how much he wants to know and
Yeah.
be a part of that. So that's one thing I'll say is, yeah, the dragons, I'd want to be a dragon. Let's be honest. I'd want
That
to be a dragon.
that would be the best I want to say safest, but I guess I mean able to protect yourself the best as a dragon than any other type of character. That's for sure.
I kind of cheated and made myself into a dragon in this next half. So
Well, you
see if
have the
folks
power to do that. So,
see if people can spot me.
last speed round question. What is bringing you the most joy in life right now?
Doctor Who has been incredible this season. Um, the not that they can't drop the ball on the at the end of I'm using sports metaphors, I'm going to get in trouble. Not that they can't drop the ball before it gets to the end zone, but um, I think she'd have got I can't. I love all my doctors. They're bad Doctor Who stories. They're just like they're bad Star Trek stories. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, you would love it because of what it is to you. So that's what's giving me life. Also, I'm getting Strange New Worlds back in about a month, which also makes me very, very happy. And oh, Last of Us. Good God,
Mm.
Last of Us this season.
Yeah, I
That's
have not
another
watched
one.
that. I feel like it'll stress me out too much.
It does, but it also it's got its own rewards. And
Yeah, I've heard really great things about it.
we have shows that we should be like I was I, we watched the first season of Severance and we haven't gotten around to the second season of
Mm.
Severance yet. And there are many things where I'm like I need to be. We haven't finished Black Mirror because Black Mirror is one of those shows that I need to build myself up
You
for.
have to be
So,
ready. Yeah.
but yeah, that's
Well,
that's that's it right now. Yeah, all my shows are actually coming to an end this week and next week, so it's
you're
going to
gonna
be
have to find
interesting.
some new ones. Or start watching them from the beginning, I guess.
That's true too.
Well, Scott, where can readers and listeners best connect with you? Are you active on social media?
I am a intermittent TikTok user, but mostly just so I can watch the videos of the people voicing, doing
Yeah.
their lip syncs to the videos. I am not very much on my Instagram. I should be more on my Instagram. I have a fantastic niece who just got back from a trip to Europe, and she's like Instagram ready. I'm so proud of her. Um, but Facebook is really my main source of interaction with fans. I have a Twitter account too, but let's be honest, nobody wants to be on Twitter anymore, and if they do, I don't know why. Um, and you know, I try and stay active. There's a graphic audio um Facebook group that I try and I don't want to be the guy who goes in there and sort of like fixes everything for everybody, but if I can be helpful and point them towards
Yeah.
things, or if they have questions, I will often answer questions on there, especially when it's about recommending my friends' books, because I've known some of these directors who I'm working with now for close to 25, 30 years in some cases. Steve Winall, who directs summer books, he and I went to college together, and
Yeah, that's awesome.
other people, I've just known for forever, and the ones that I haven't known for forever, I'm also the training manager, so I've got to see them just blossom as directors. And then there's Ken Jackson and Terrence Azelford, who were there before I got there, who are probably the epitome of living legend, in my opinion, when it comes to graphic audio. So yeah, no, it's there's something for everyone on graphic audio. I just to give it a plug, we talk about genres, zombies, werewolves, vampires, um Dragon Academy. We also do the Zodiac Academy. We do, mentioned Miss Armentrout. We do her series, Clean Sweep. We've done a lot of romantasy series, and we're also branching out into more mystery series these
Yeah.
days.
Well, and
So
that's actually my next question of where can we find these projects? Graphic audio is its own platform, right?
we have our own platform. We have our own app. You're also able to stream on our from our website. If you purchase a book, you can listen to it from your desktop. We obviously are on sale on all of the standard, Audibles and Apples and Spotify's and all that. But if you want the best prices, this is the secret. Between sales and just our regular best prices, if you buy the books on our website, and then on top of that, once you buy them on our website, they're yours forever. And if you lose it, or you don't, you can pay extra to download it, or you can
Hmm.
just have it as an audio file that you can use through our app or through the website. So
Yeah,
I definitely recommend people using our website to purchase the books.
definitely. And since you do so much in comic books, do you do any kind of like Comic Con conventions or anything like that as a voice actor?
We did used to do them. Um,
Not so
it
much
becomes it
anymore.
it becomes cost prohibitive to do that. Last one I did was I went to Dragon Con, which was a fantastic experience. Got to meet a lot of our fans, got to meet a lot of our actors actually. Um, but I think you'll find that unless you're selling a physical, uh, I go to a lot of cons personally. I go to at least 3 to 5 a year. My wife and I have gone to New York Comic Con the last two
Yeah,
years. But we also go to the Awesome Con, which is our local one. Richmond has a great one, Galaxy Con, which is a franchise of a lot of different Galaxy Cons. And so we're big people who go. We get our photos taken. We do the autographs. We do all that. And I love to go. And the biggest thing for me is meeting the artists.
sure.
So
Yeah.
we love to spend our time in Artist Alley, and also going around and meeting the actors and writers that we love. As
Yeah.
far as buying physical items, it doesn't make sense to go to a con to buy physical items that you could buy online, and then it's about art for us. That's what we believe in.
Sure.
So the first time we went, first year I worked for GraphicAudio, we took all our stuff to New York Comic Con and we tried to sell pallet loads of our CDs back when we used to be on
Yeah.
CDs. And we took a pallet load of books back home with us.
Yeah.
So while it's great to interact with the fans, we don't tend to do that. I'll try and do, if I go to a con, I'll try and say, if you want to meet up with me at such a place, I'll meet
I'm
up with you
here.
there. Yeah.
So not
Um,
in an official capacity, but fans might see you just as a fellow fan.
and I sometimes make myself known to, like, if I go up to a booth and I see a Fourth Wing uh something or another on a
Yeah.
stand, I'll say, this is what I do, and then they'll hold up their phone to me and so this is what I listen to when I'm driving home.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Scott, for being on with us. We
Thank
all
you.
always finish our episodes at Our Nerdiest Thing talking about what our nerdiest thing of the week is. And it is usually book related because that's what we talk about. But it can really be anything, maybe a deep dive if you have to do research for a project or listening to something yourself that you're just super excited about. We would love to hear what your nerdiest thing of the week is.
I'm reading a series of books called The Vinyl Detective, and it's by an author named Andrew Carmel, who was a Doctor Who story editor and writer back in the 80s. So back in the time uh, I think Sylvester McCoy, he was right in there. So the stories basically revolve around him going and having to find vinyl records from different periods of time. And so the first one was him trying to find a jazz album, set of jazz albums for a collector. And then it basically everything evolves from that, where there'll start to be murders and mysteries that are involved with that. And so I I often find myself being sucked down these rabbit holes. I'm not really a vinyl guy. As a matter of fact, I bought a record player just because I bought a They Might Be Giants album the other day. Um, but I'm not really a vinyl person. But this is the kind of stuff that gets pulled me in because it's got history involved in it, and it's got all this kind of entertainment. Um, in a similar vein, and this is something that I tell people to listen to. I'm not a country music person either,
Yeah.
but there's a podcast called Cocaine and Rhinestones. Um, which there's only been 2 seasons of. And the writer who has put together this podcast interweaves historical events like the toreador suits that matadors wear into discussing various elements of country music and country music history. And
Oh, that's interesting.
he's such a good storyteller. And so the first season were sort of standalone stories, and then the second series sort of looks at the artist George Strait and Tammy Wynette, and looks at
Mm,
their lives and sort of interweaves because the two of them were in a relationship. And
yeah.
I find he is not the flashiest storyteller, but he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And I just recommend that as well. Those are the two things. And when I say why do I say those are my nerdiest things? I have plenty of, like, you know I I have all the standard nerd stuff in my life, but
Yeah.
I believe nerdery goes across all things that people love. And
100%.
so I may not be a nerd for vinyl records, but I can respect vinyl records. I may not be a nerd for country western stuff, but the stuff I learned from listening to these things is exactly the kind of, like, history nerdery that I love.
Yeah.
So those are the things I would recommend.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. It has been a pleasure to get to meet you and chat with you.
It was a pleasure to meet you too.